Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Guy. This is Guy Talk Sports. Thank you for clicking on this video. I appreciate it. Got a big one today. Going to be talking about Josh Heupel, right? With the anticipation of football season continuing to build as the opening game moves closer, I thought it'd be kind of fun to take a look at Josh Heupel, the head football coach at the University of Tennessee, as he is leading our historic program to heights not reached for nearly 2 decades. So I thought we'd take a look at his time as a player, his time as a coach, and then kind of at the end do a little rough overview of his offensive scheme. So before we get into that, though, if you don't mind, right under this video, right under the screen, you will see a subscribe button. If you don't mind, please smash that for me. Help me continue to grow this channel. Let's dive into this. So, a lot of this information that I'm going to be talking about today comes from utsports.com. It lists all kinds of great stuff about him. But let's kind of dive into the player for this first section. He was born in Aberdeen, South Dakota on March 22nd, 1978. Heupel's father was the head football coach at Northern State University, which is also located in Aberdeen. He played high school football at Aberdeen Central, where he became the South Dakota Player of the Year in his senior season. He was quite the traveler during his college playing days. He began his college career at Weber State University, which is in Ogden, Utah, where he spent 2 years before transferring to Snow College in Ephraim, Utah. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. After a successful season, he then was offered and committed to Oklahoma, which is the same year Bob Stoops became the head coach. Heupel's offensive coordinator for that year was actually Mike Leach. He ended up leaving after 1 year to go to Texas Tech, and then Mark Mangino became the offensive coordinator. In 2000, Heupel and the Sooners would go undefeated, beating Florida State 13-2 in the national championship game, and this ultimately sort of cemented his legacy at Oklahoma. And he was also the runner-up for the Heisman Trophy that year as well. Coincidentally, he actually narrowly lost to Chris Winkie. And if any Tennessee fans out there remember, it was actually Tennessee's quarterback's coach under Jeremy Pruitt's regime. But let's not focus in on that dark time. We're just talking about the good stuff, right? He was then selected as the number 177th pick in the 6th round to the Miami Dolphins, where I don't actually know if he even made the team that year. I think he had a lot of issues with his shoulder, and he ended up going to Green Bay, where he only stayed for a brief time. But let's get into his coaching career. It is quite the career so far. So for the 03-04 season, he was a grad assistant at his alma mater, the Oklahoma Sooners. Became tight ends coach at Arizona the next year under head coach Mike Stoops, which is Bob Stoops' brother. And also Mark Stoops was the defensive coordinator for that Arizona team. And he's now of course, the head coach at Kentucky. Also, another crazy connection when I was doing kind of research on this, Mike Canales was the offensive coordinator for that team. And again, if you're a Tennessee fan, you'll remember Mike Canales in the 2017 season was Tennessee's quarterback's coach. Heupel then returned to Oklahoma to be the quarterback's coach from 06 to 10, where he actually coached Sam Bradford, who's a famous Oklahoma quarterback. And he ultimately won the Heisman Trophy in 2008. Heupel also coached Landry Jones as well, who's a famous quarterback. In 2011, he was promoted to co-offensive coordinator, which he split with the now head coach of Colorado State, Jay Norvell. They did this up through the 2014 season when they were both let go. I can only imagine how painful that would really be, though, especially, this is a place where you have really deep roots. You won them a national championship. You played for the coach. Now you've been able to work for the coach all the way to offensive coordinator. You probably spent a lot of time with him. And to then kind of get let go, I'm sure it had to hurt. But I think ultimately it was probably best for both parties because replacing Heupel, you had Lincoln Riley come in, and he produced some amazing offenses for Oklahoma. And you also had and this also kind of sort of propelled Heupel to become a head coach later on, right? So I guess it's kind of all's well that ends well, but it would be, I'm sure there's still some deep wounds there. So in 2015, Heupel became the assistant head coach offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for Utah State. After 1 year, became the Missouri offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach in 2016. And this is really, I think, when Tennessee fans first got a taste of what Heupel's offense can do. I remember watching those two teams play those 2 years when we played Missouri, and they were really impressive. That's when you just kind of saw that kind of tempo. I remember watching those games and not being able to look away because you didn't have time when we were on defense because Missouri was moving the ball so fast. And I remember just how explosive they were under him as well. So I think those memories were one of the reasons I was willing to give him a shot when it was announced that he was going to be the head coach. But I am jumping ahead. So he stayed at Missouri for 2 seasons before Danny White, who is the athletic director for UCF, hired him as the head coach after Scott Frost, who was amazing at UCF, had the undefeated season. He left for Nebraska. Heupel saw a ton of success his first 2 years there. He went 12-1 in 2018 and then 10-3 in 2019. 2020 was a down year for the program, but if you recall, as I feel like the whole world does, that was when COVID hit, right? And I really try not to blame anybody for their coaching performance during that time because it was hard for everybody, unless, of course, you're named Jeremy Pruitt. Then, So Danny White was then hired as the athletic director for UT, and he decided to bring along Heupel and hired him as the head football coach for the University of Tennessee on January 27th, 2021, and thank goodness he did, right? So there was a lot of criticism around UT at the time. A lot of football coaches weren't even willing to give Tennessee a chance. With the investigation ongoing after Pruitt was fired, the program really was in shambles. It was a national embarrassment. This is a program that saw 15 to 20 years of complete mediocrity. A program that was once in the upper echelon of college football. The top 10 winningest program of all time, right, in football. And I remember being so proud as a kid to kind of call myself a Vol fan. And it was a cool thing back then to be a Vol fan, right? We were awesome. And then for 2 decades, we were down, and boy, were we kicked while we were down. National media would constantly tear us apart. Everyone said we would never be what we were ever again. A lot of national media was saying that. And to be fair, after 20 years, 15 to 20 years anyway, you do start to wonder, right? Everyone was saying that Tennessee fans should just accept it, be okay with the fact that Tennessee would never be relevant in football again. And in steps Josh Heupel, who inherited the biggest mess of messes that was our program. I think we had 30-something players that year transfer out. I mean, it was awful. It was one of the worst situations you could walk into. Heupel takes over, and then that next year we go 7-6 with a bowl game appearance. And I think that really kind of turned everybody's head because we were not supposed to be that far along, right? Again, this is a program that was in shambles, not even mediocrity, below mediocrity. And then we go 7-6 his first year. And then the next year, 2022, Hendon Hooker is the starting quarterback, and Tennessee goes 11-2. You had wins against Florida that you hadn't had in a while, at LSU, and then, of course, the sweet throw your goalposts in the river and light a cigar victory that was over the Alabama Crimson Tide. Tennessee then went on to win the Orange Bowl against Clemson with Joe Milton as the quarterback, right, after Hendon Hooker got injured. Next year, so this last year, 2023, saw a bit of a step back. I think a lot of things kind of went into this, and I can do another video probably to spare some time on this one, kind of going over like what went wrong last year. Still went 8-4, got a bowl victory over Iowa with Nico stepping into play. And so, it wasn't terrible. 9-4 overall. That's not a horrible year. And if that's the floor for Josh Heupel, I'm fine with that. However, that leads us to here, awaiting this 2024 season. And there's so much excitement around this program. And with Nico Iamaleava at quarterback, a lot of people are expecting Tennessee to kind of get back to that 2022 level of success that saw us, leading so many categories in the country, or at least top 5 in the country, and could make a serious run for the college football playoff, right? especially now that they're expanding to 12 teams. So very, very excited about this season coming up. I know I just kind of ran off a whole list of things. That's because it was a big old list of things. He's been in a lot of different places in his career. But what I've kind of been most excited I wanted to talk about in this video is let's kind of shift towards offensive scheme. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I am not a football expert. I've played a little football. I know quite a bit about football, but I'm in no way an expert, right? This is merely from what I have gathered and from what I've seen on the field. This is what I know of this offense, or at least think I know of this offense and what they are trying to do against the defense, right? This is an offense that Heupel has, fine-tuned for years. And this is really me just giving a very basic overview and, of some of the stuff that he tries to run. So just some of the stuff. So what makes Heupel's offense so dangerous, so productive, right? There's really two main concepts to look at in his offense. The first one being tempo. This is an offense that is going to move with blistering speed down the field. So you start to wonder, well, what's the point of going fast? There's a few different reasons. So by moving fast, you can sometimes catch the defense off guard, right? Every now and then you're going to catch them off guard. They're not paying attention, and you're going to make some very productive plays. B, the tempo can often confuse the defense. They cannot properly communicate. They can't switch out personnel, right? And therefore, they'll often be out of the right alignment, which then in turn can make small plays into big plays. C, this kind of goes along with B a bit, but Tennessee will occasionally slip in kind of a predetermined play where they're going to be in a different set, different scheme, draw up something a little differently. And because this tempo is moving so fast, the defense has no time to react to it, no time to even recognize, hey, this is something different, watch out. And then that's when Tennessee can really draw up and scheme up some big time down the field plays. And then lastly, this kind of pace eventually can really fatigue a defense, right? All game long, it is bam, 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 all the way down the field. And at some point, that defense is going to start getting tired, especially the defensive linemen. And that's very beneficial when at the end of the game, if you have to run the clock out, all of a sudden those defensive linemen can't make a push like they were. So 2, wide splits. Wide splits. Heupel loves to utilize the entire field, right? He likes to spread that defense very thin. And this causes quite a few problems for the defense, right? So most people think of Heupel and his offense as sort of an air raid. And they really can't be further from the truth. That is a huge misconception of this offense, is that it's like an air raid offense. Those people that think that are the ones that really just watch the highlights and see the big pass plays and think, oh, it's just, no, it's not that at all. While we do throw the long ball a lot, this offense is really a dream for any running back playing for this team. If you're a prospective running back and you see Tennessee, you need to be thinking of opportunity. In 2021, Tennessee averaged 218.2 yards per game. 2022, they averaged 199.5 yards per game. And then in 2023, 204.8 yards per game on the ground. This team likes to run. And if all you give us is the run, they're going to take the run. By having those wide splits, you create quite the gap from the interior box to the outside, right? Most defenses are playing a base defense of 4-2-5, which is 2 linebackers, 5 defensive backs. And so with the wide splits, you push most, if not all, the focus of the defensive backs to the outside. And it can also cause the linebackers to spread out and make some difficult choices. This often leads to a light box count, where you have lower numbers on defense and inside the tackles, which in turn leads to big-time run plays. And then this is especially true if you have somebody like Jalen Wright last year, who was good at finding the hole, making it to the second level, and then with his combo of speed and sort of his ability to kind of get skinny and run through things, I mean, it was a nightmare to go up against. And that's why he had such he averaged like over 7 yards a carry last year. on his way to a 1,000-yard season, right? And this is even more true when you think about linebackers having to cover the flat, especially if you start to shift like a tight end or a running back out wide, and then couple that with a mobile quarterback. It simply is the defense doesn't have enough guys to cover everyone, and so this offense is really tough to defend. It's really tough to defend against with those two key concepts. It makes it very, very difficult if you're a defensive coordinator. Another thing to really mention, I guess one specific thing in particular that Tennessee does, and this is something that a lot of spread offenses will do, they don't really have, the wide receivers don't really have these predetermined routes to run before a play. They have more of what's called like a route tree. And so basically each receiver has certain keys that they look for that they're reading during the play. And so just to really very crudely break this down, say you have an outside receiver and a slot receiver kind of lined up to either the right or the left, say to the right. So it's called a switch route. That outside receiver, they're going to break in a bit and go straight. And then what they're reading is that safety playing over the top. If they're playing over the top, they're going to keep breaking that route inward, right? If they're not playing over the top, they're going to go straight down the field and you're going to be, due for a long touchdown. So say that safety follows him in and he's breaking inward, right? And so now that slot receiver breaks outward a bit on a bit of a wheel route and he's reading the cornerback. If that cornerback that is lined up with that outside receiver follows him in along with that safety, and you've got that slot receiver kind of doing that wheel route, that the cornerback that's lined up against him, there's going to be a lot of congestion there. And especially if you have somebody fast, like say Jalen Hyatt, like we did in 2022, or Squirrel White last year and this year, and then look out for Mike Matthews, you're going to have a really hard time keeping up with him. And so if that cornerback follows the outside receiver, the cornerback that's lined over the slot is already behind in the play. And then if you follow that wheel route, that's how Jalen Hyatt had so many long touchdowns. That's how so many long touchdowns are created in this offense. Because if you don't read those keys right on defense, you're going to get burned. And so, there are a ton more concepts in this offense, but I really just kind of wanted to break down some of the key principles and then just sort of take a look at what the receivers do here. Like I said, there are so many other things like the tight end that gets involved. He's so important. There's a lot of other stuff to cover, but I really just wanted to kind of do just a very brief overview of this offense and kind of give some of the key concepts. So let's talk about, is there any downside? Is there any downside to a Josh Heupel offense? I've heard several people talk about how this offense is gimmicky and how it only has success against weaker opponents. For instance, like Georgia, I hear a lot of Georgia fans and a lot of people always point at Georgia and how they seem to always play Tennessee extremely well on defense. I have 2 points that I would quickly like to make about this. First, no kidding, everyone struggles against Georgia. When you have a team like that, yeah, we're going to do better against worse teams. That's a common sense statement, and it's one that I've never understood in that argument. When we're playing against easier teams, of course we're going to have more production. When we're playing against teams like Georgia, of course we're going to have less production. Georgia's a great, they're a great team. They have been for the last few years, and they've played us very well. And there's a few different reasons. Like I said, they're a very great team. They're always loaded. They're very well coached. They stick to their assignments like they should. It's much easier to punch through paper than it is brick, right? Georgia is the brick in that example. It is very hard for any team to be productive against Georgia's defense. That's just how they are. They are that talented. And then not only that, the second point, Georgia typically has the kind of cornerbacks that can play man coverage. And so when you can play man coverage on the outside, all of a sudden you can focus more guys on the inside in the box. Couple that with a loaded defensive line that Georgia always has that can fill in the run gaps and can apply pressure on the quarterback without much extra help. Yeah, you're going to have a hard time doing anything. You're going to have a hard time running the ball. you're going to have a hard time throwing the ball. And that, again, that has to do with Georgia being well coached and Georgia having really good talent. Anyway, it's hard to keep hearing about how this offense is gimmicky and how they have a hard time against good competition. You can say that with anybody. That's not a good argument. Everybody has a hard time when they're playing against better competition, unless you're the best team out there. And so, anyway, I just wanted to make those 2 points really quick. It always drives me crazy when I hear stuff like that. So, there is one particular downside that I've noticed, that not just me that's noticed, but most people notice. Josh Heupel's defense tends to give up a lot of big plays. Because of the offense that Heupel runs, the defense tends to be out there on the field a lot. It's just how it is. They end up running a lot of plays, and they tend to give up some big plays. And that's just because they get burned out easier, right? They don't get a lot of breaks. But anyway, in his 3 years, Heupel has snagged 18 single-season all-time records at Tennessee. 18 in 3 years. And I'll be sure to put a list of them. Should be just right over there. To kind of go over most of them. His offense has been nothing short of electric, and I'm really looking forward to this season. He's coached a number of NFL draft picks. After 2 decades of being relegated to the sidelines, at least for this Tennessee fan, it is nice to finally have the Vols kind of once again in the national spotlight, right? Any year is a hard year in the SEC, but if Tennessee can have a few things go their way, I really believe this team can make a lot of noise and potentially make that 12-team playoff. So super excited about this year. I know this was a loaded video. I have talked a ton. I am getting winded just talking about all this stuff. But it's a video I've been wanting to do for a while now. I kind of thought it was time to finally kind of make a video on highlighting him and kind of all that he's done, and give a big thank you from this Tennessee fan to Josh Heupel for making our football team relevant once again. So that's all I've got for this one. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, I know it's been a long one. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you. If you don't mind, drop a comment down below. Let me know, what do you think about Heupel? What do you think about his offense? What are your impressions on Heupel? How have you felt about his first 3 years here? Go ahead, hit that like button for me. I appreciate it. And then lastly, please hit that subscribe button for me. Help me continue to grow this channel. Thank you so much once again. Go Vols. We'll see you next time.